Talk about my boy Scary Terry for sure. I'll start this segment briefly
This is all you, Jack.
to preface kind of my thoughts.
Can you do it without tears?
I can because, in my opinion, he's going to be on the team this upcoming season. I think he's going to have to face the reality that no one is going to give him the money that he is asking for, because the reports have been that he is asking for more, for significantly more than what DK Metcalf got, which significantly more puts him into like the tier of being a top 5, top 3 paid wide receiver. And as productive as he's been, as consistent as he's been, as much as I love him, he's never produced at that level of a top 3 guy, and he's also approaching 30 years old. He'll turn 30 at some point in this season. So wherever he goes, it's either going to be a rental, or if they do pay him, he's not going to get the money he wants. And I do think he wants to be in Washington. So I'm more worried than I was 5 days ago about him being on the team. But I still view this as more of him being like, this is serious, guys. We need to look at this. Like, y'all have to up your value. So I'm nervous, but I'm not in panic mode like I think the Cowboys are in panic mode.
Yeah, part of this is I think he gets at a point for me that kind of annoys me, and people have made this point a little bit, but just play out your contract. Like, I get it, you're outperforming what you're worth right now and what you're being paid, but you also signed that contract that was already a healthy contract extension for what he was at the time when he got that contract extension. And I get it, you want to make more money and you only get one chance to make all this money, but at the same time I think you should play out your contract. If you want that money, prove it again this year with Jaden Daniels, and then maybe you get that extension and that extra guaranteed money next year. But I that's the kind of part that annoys me. Well, I understand it. He was amazing last year, and for Jaden Daniels, if you don't mind throwing that graphic up there, he was a large part of the reason Jaden Daniels was so good. This one stands out. This is Jaden Daniels by target. So essentially, every time he throws a pass to somebody with Terry McLaurin, when he threw it to Terry, 9 yards pass, 15 touchdowns, only 2 picks, and 128 passer rating. When he throws it to anybody else, tight end, Zach Ertz, Diami Brown, either the running backs, and Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson, 6.9 yards per pass, 15 touchdowns, 8 picks, which I think is a big thing that stands out to me. And, of course, the passer rating at 91.8 isn't necessarily excellent. And so I think it made Jaden Daniels a really, really good. And that's not necessarily a bad take or a surprising graphic. But it also it shows the value of wide receivers and why they are paid as much money as they are, because they make even the great quarterbacks that much better.
Second highest paid position in football, is that right?
They with the pass rush,
edge
it's essentially the same
neck
thing.
And neck, yeah.
I'd say I'm pretty sure they're third from a total money value. But Scary Terry is a huge part of Jaden Daniels and his success going forward. You think of he made a ton of big plays for them. You have the Bengals game, the one that stands out a ton to me. Jack, I'm sure you could name more, but he's was the deep ball threat and the deep passing threat, jump ball threat in the red zone. Like, he is a large piece for Jaden Daniels, and considering what is in that room right now, you can't really just let him walk.
It'd be scary without Scary Terry. Another piece of the puzzle I want to throw in real quick is we talked about Micah Parsons would potentially just sit out games. McLaurin maybe would start out that way. I'm not sure if he's a guy who's like stock or value could be preserved if he doesn't play, since he's already getting older. And if he was just going to like, look, I'll sit out and not play and go get my money next offseason, I think he would take his value would take yet another hit by doing that, and he would struggle to get anywhere close to the money he wanted at that point.
Yeah, he'd be going into his age 31 season having not played football for a year.
Correct. He was someone that would need to go on the field and be like, I deserve this kind of money, and show it on the field. So he's someone I don't expect, even if the Commanders don't sign him long term, I think we'll find him in a Commanders uniform this next season anyway.
Yeah, this is definitely the one I'd be surprised if he was traded, because of the value he is to the Commanders. And then also, I don't think he's a hard person to trade for and get what he wants, which is a contract extension. And I really only found one place where that's possible. We'll look into a few of the trades here. I'll go and bring out the one that I think is actually possible for everyone to get what they want, and that is the Tennessee Titans.
Yep.
Trading to Tennessee, they've got the cap space for it. I think the Patriots is a spot, too, where you could see a similar trade. But I don't necessarily see that as something they would do to put that kind of money in two guys that are going into their 30s and two receivers while they are household names are not necessarily going to be guys that, one, is the older you get, the less likely you are to stay healthy, the less explosive you are. And I don't think they would trade for scary Terry while having Stephon Diggs on the roster already. So I don't have that one mocked. But for Tennessee, I do. I think this is the one where they can get Terry, and Terry can be what he is to Jaden Daniels, to Cam Ward in Tennessee, and maybe they could see that. And with what they have in the receiver room, it's kind of a home run. Although Cam Ward, of course, likes his receivers. The only problem, I think, for Washington is I don't know if there is enough that they can get back, because in all of these trades that we'll show you, Washington has to get a receiver back, considering what they have in the room. Otherwise, Luke McCaffrey is wide receiver 1 next year.
I mean, it's Debo.
Debo?
But
Yeah.
that's not a good place to be. But it's a perfect point. The Commanders, we view ourselves in our championship window. This is like our time to win.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to trade him and sacrifice a year of our window. So it's 100% accurate. If we do look to trade him, we will have to look to get a wide receiver back. And that makes it even harder to try and find a deal because you're not just asking for picks back. You're asking someone to give up a good wide receiver, because it doesn't. If we go get, I don't know who to put on blast, but if we go get someone's 4th string wide receiver, that doesn't help us at all. We already have plenty of those.
Yeah, this is where the Titans one kind of struggles for me, because Van Jefferson would be something like that for Washington, and he is kind of like the 2nd, 3rd, but he really could be the 4th or 5th this year for Tennessee. So that one kind of doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense for Washington, but it makes a ton of sense for Tennessee. The other one I would pull up would be San Francisco. This one is not one where they could pay him going forward.
Could we get the 49ers one?
Because of the money that they put in Brock Purdy. But it makes sense on both sides, because I think it would potentially make both players involved in it happy. Juwan Jennings is in a contract dispute already. Hurt his calf in training camp, but he has told the team directly, I will not play this season unless you extend me or trade me. And they're still in talks there, and he was participating in training camp and hurt his calf again. But him wanting to be traded could happen here, and you trade him to Washington. He immediately becomes wide receiver 1 for Jaden Daniels. You give up a 3rd-round pick in that to kind of match the value there. But then Terry McLaurin would be a 1-year rental for San Francisco, although I think they would need that, considering what they have in-house. Brandon Ayuk won't play until week 7 at best. And so right now the receiver room is Ricky Pearsall. And if Juwan Jennings isn't extended, it's just Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle, and Christian McCaffrey for Brock Purdy. And considering how he struggled last season without his weapons, I think this is something that San Francisco should really consider. I think a lot of the NFL wouldn't necessarily like it, because San Francisco's kind of a villain a little bit in the NFL.
And everyone loves Scary Terry. He's one of the more well-liked players.
Exactly.
So it would be a weird feeling there.
100%. Jack, you have a trade as well.
Yeah, our trade.
Our trade, yes, I'd say.
You've made a ton of good points. It really is difficult to find a trade that makes sense for both sides, even close, like even stretching it. I think the Colts is somewhere he should go, as they're kind of looking to find. They have Michael Pittman there. I think McLaurin's better, and I think they're still looking to find out ways to help their quarterback room, whether Daniel Jones starts or there's rumors Richardson's actually looked good in camp and could find his way to starting again, and he'd just be a good security blanket for them there. But it's, again, a thing of, like, would he just be a rental for them? Would they really look to extend him? And if they don't extend him, why bring in this rental for a team that realistically, even adding Terry McLaurin, they're not really in Super Bowl contention.
Right.
And then you'd have to give up Alec Pierce in a 3rd. Alec Pierce actually had a good season last year. He had like 800 receiving yards. Was a good big play guy, which is something, especially looking at fit, the Commanders would want to get back because you have gadget guys like Debo and inside guys, but they would need someone to be the outside guy and be the big play threat and bring speed for Jaden Daniels. So he would be a good piece back, not as good as Terry McLaurin. But it's just like I'm not really sure why the Colts would, kind of jump all over this if they're just going to bring him in as a rental.
They could potentially see it as a thing of, okay, we don't have necessarily great quarterback play, so let's get our guy a ton of weapons, and that would be able to make him better. It makes sense this season because I think Daniel Jones is going to be the starter for much of the season this year for Indianapolis. We haven't necessarily seen Daniel Jones with great weapons, and
I was about to make the same point.
He would
except
have
for
that.
Maybe last year
he played with Malik
Neighbors,
and
Neighbors was hurt.
Neighbors was hurt, but Neighbors put up numbers.
He would have
Daniel Jones
2 1,000-yard receivers if they traded for Terry.
That might be his first time.
It's a good point.
1,000-yard receivers.
It'd be interesting to see how that worked because Daniel has not necessarily been a terrible quarterback. While he hasn't been good from a win perspective, a lot of his issues have been health, and then you kind of question, does he have a guy to throw to, considering who they had there with Sterling Shepard and
Darius
Slayton. It also makes sense in the long term. Indianapolis has the cap space to extend Terry, not necessarily to give him more money this year, but in the years in the future, they have enough money to be able to pay him. And I think it makes sense. This is the one that makes the most sense for the Commanders in terms of a get back as well. That third-round pick might be really valuable if Indy fails this season for whatever reason.
I do think with McLaurin, they would kind of look to shore up a playoff spot, but there is a chance for sure. It also is kind of a homecoming for Terry McLaurin. He's from that area.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he played some playoff games in that stadium. So this is the one I think is most likely, but there's just still so many hoops to jump through to get to this point.
Yeah, I do think it's funny. It is our trade. We literally made the exact same trade, but at different times, even down to the picks, the 6th and the 3rd rounder. The last one I want to throw out there, I threw it out there as a funny one. I don't think you've seen this one yet.
I made it, but I don't remember it.
I don't think he's seen it.
The only trade I saw of yours was the Micah Parsons.
Would you accept
Bills
this trade? The Saints get Terry McLaurin, and it would be a 1-year rental because we don't have the cap space going forward. You get Bub Means, Mason Tipton, and a 3rd-round pick. Are you accepting this, Commanders?
I would not accept it. I mean, to be honest, all the 4 trades we've seen, I'm not accepting. I just want Terry on this team. I will say initially I saw it I missed the round on the Commanders column, so I read it as the 2026 3rd pick, and I was like, I think I would take the 3rd overall pick for Terry. But no, I don't see this coming to fruition. You would reunite some Ohio State boys in that wide receiver room with this.
Also true. I thought this was a funny one. This is all I would give up. I'm not giving up Shaheed or Olave.
Yeah.
And Bub Means and Tipton would be our. You also you don't want Brandon Cooks back, so Brandon Cooks is not involved in that trade. But maybe Bub Means and Mason Tipton can become stars with Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels ends up in like a worse Justin Herbert situation. Goodness.
I think Bub Means has got some potential.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind.
But we'll see.
As I turn down the trade, I'll say, Saints, I do think Bub Means has some good potential. Unfortunately, we like what we got in-house with Terry. We're not looking to move on from him. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, throw up Jaden Daniels by Target one last time.
I do have another one.
He did
cook one up. Oh, you have
It's not
another
a
trade.
graphic.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw this one. So mine, I went a very different approach. I looked for previous comparisons, and the best comparison I could find was Devontae Adams 3 years ago, when he was 29. He got a 1st and a 2nd going from Las Vegas to the Jets, right? And was it Green Bay to Las Vegas?
It was probably the Green Bay to Las Vegas.
Green Bay to Las Vegas. So that was the trade that I kind of modeled this one after. It's a 1st and a 3rd, and it's the Panthers to the Commanders. So the Panthers, I think, bringing in an older wide receiver makes a lot of sense because they have right now their wide receiver core is Tedero McMillan, Adam Thielen, and Xavier Legette. So if you bring in Terry McLaurin, and the reason I think the 1st and the 3rd makes sense is because I think they would extend him. So you bring in Terry McLaurin, extend him for 3 years, and then 3 years after that extension, Tedero McMillan's rookie contract comes up. You let Terry walk in his age 34 season. You extend Tedero McMillan, assuming you hit, which I think that most teams are going to act under the assumption that they're right, or else they wouldn't have picked him. So assuming Tedero McMillan does develop into the wide receiver 1, you extend him, and that gives Bryce Young the best chance of success because he did play well the second half of last season, but there's still doubts. There have to be just because of how he looked for the first year and a half, getting benched multiple times. So I think it makes a lot of sense, and it is a lot more value than y'all are talking. But also, I'm acting under the assumption that the Panthers extend him. I'm also you're not giving anyone back, which is unfortunate for the Commanders, but also a first-round pick. I mean, next year you could draft a wide receiver, and then him with Deebo Samuel, maybe that's an argument to be made there. So that's kind of the approach I took. It was a little bit different. No players going back, but I think that for the Panthers it makes sense.
And this can happen. There are still players out there. Amari Cooper is still a free agent right now, and I think that's someone the Commanders might look to sign. I looked at this one. I don't know if the cap space works out for next year. They only have $17 million available next year. So they would have to move some cap around if we're going to get Terry at what's the number? 35, give or take?
Around there, yeah.
So they're going to have to clear up about $18 million, which they could do. There's some contracts available that they could trade, trading Derek Brown, or you trade Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis, one of the offensive linemen. But I don't know if they would want to do that. We'll see. But it makes a ton of sense. I think that makes sense. I like the way you laid it out with the contracts with Ted McMillan and Scary Terry as well. That makes sense as a potential spot as well. To recap that all, we've got trades to Indy, to New Orleans. I think Tennessee makes a ton of sense. San Francisco, and then Carolina as well. But ultimately, I think we all think that he'll be back in Washington this season. He'll be playing this season because realistically, this is the best spot for him if winning a championship.
Jaden Daniels gets to throw the football, bro. Come on.
You'd rather have Jaden Daniels at QB than Bryce Young or Cam Ward probably.
If he's
or
being
Daniel
traded,
Jones.
he's going to whoever the hell the Saints start this year. Bryce Young, Cam Ward, Brock Purdy, or Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones. So this is the best spot possible for him. So I don't even know why you requested a trade. I would just play, man.
Jack, do you have a percentage confidence that he will be in Washington next year?
75%. You mean this upcoming season or the following year?
This upcoming season and then also the following year. Separate percentage.
75% this upcoming season, 60 next season.
Yeah.
Because I really think he's going to get, if he doesn't sign an extension before this season, he's going to get to the off season and realize that the money he's looking for just isn't there.
Yeah, I mean, especially he'll be 31 at that point. So
unless he just goes nuclear this season, but even still, he's 31.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need him. Otherwise, you start to rely on Luke McCaffrey. And while he was a guy that people said was going to be a fantasy steal last year, I don't know if you necessarily want to do that if you're Washington.